Greetings, friends. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Ever. Today, I wanted to make an interesting video about the Haindl Tarot. So, as many of you probably already know, this is a very special deck to me, one of my all-time favorite decks, and this particular copy, which I'll flip through really quick for you, is a really special copy because I've been saying vintage, but we'll continue in that vein just simply because that's what I've said in the past, but I'm not totally sure if it's a vintage deck. But anyways, the point is it's an earlier printing and the quality is just so much better. So this copy is super special to me, and I work with it on my altar. And so one thing that I've noticed recently, however, is that I feel like, let me know if you've experienced this, I've just been getting negative readings, just like really, I'm getting like negative cards, and I wanted to like explore that experience of like when a deck just keeps giving you like negative cards, like oppression, cruelty, failure. And it's like, so like what's going on? And it's like I've noticed, and I realized this especially when I was doing my top 10 decks, I just couldn't put Heindel at number 1, and I didn't fully understand why. I mean, like, I kind of understood why, because there were other decks that were like, made more sense at number 1. So this sort of fell at number 3, but I realized after the fact, I was like, oh yeah, like I was like hesitant to work with it at various times because I kept getting these like negative cards. And I just, not saying that negative cards aren't good. Like, I value them. I think they're important. But like when it feels like every time you work with a deck, you're getting just like these like really strong, difficult messages, it's just like, okay, like maybe I should work with another deck. And this is like, it's an intense deck, and it just doesn't always, it doesn't always feel good. Like, it's just, I don't know. The cards in this deck, when they're negative or intense, they're really intense. Like there's a lot of eyes. Like the sword suit is like really messy. Even the wand suit a lot of times feels like wild. I mean, here you go. You're seeing what I'm putting down. It's a mess. It's difficult. And yeah, like I've just gotten a lot of these like negative cards. And yeah, so I thought I would do like a quick little reading with the Heindel. Yeah, this one I got also recently. And I was just like, you know what? And it's because, I think it was because I recently got this card that I was like, yes, that's what's been going on. And that's how I'm feeling. So I was like, you know what? Let's interview the Heindel Tarot and ask what the hell is going on. And so I thought that'd be a fun video to do on camera. So let me just shuffle really quick, and I haven't prepared questions. I'm just gonna sort of like take a moment to feel it out, see what I want to ask, and yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, so Haindl Tarot, my favorito little deck. I just want to get a sense of what's going on between us, get a pulse on our relationship and the energy that we're exchanging at this time. So if you could just give me some insight into what's going on and help me understand how I can best work with you, during whatever the heck is going on. I really need some answers, and I love you dearly, but I'm struggling with you a little bit. Your energy is just, it's bringing me down, and I'm not totally understanding it. So, yeah, okay, so okay. All right. Okay, so I think the first question that I wanted to ask was, what is your energy at this time? Just like some insight, not what is your energy, but some insight into the energy in the deck at this time. The Chariot. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in actually. And I brought in this crystal here because this is a very special crystal to me. This clear quartz I got a couple of years ago as a representation of truth and following my truth and my intuitions about situations. It's a lot deeper than that, but I thought it would be a beautiful companion for this reading. So anyway, back to the Chariot. So this card apparently is Herman Haindl's card because of the relationship that he has to the rune, the Hagal rune, which actually this deck has its own specific reading for that rune. So in a way, I feel like the energy of the deck is saying, I'm being myself, I'm being who I was made to be. And that relationship to the Chariot for me tells me about specifically in this deck, in the guidebook, it says, I'm going to pull it out here. It says here, the Haindl retains the idea of, the Haindl Tarot retains the idea of will, but carries it further, showing the confrontation of willpower with fear. The self, the figure in the boat, rides on the surging sea of life, driven by the primal beast experienced just over the shoulder, just out of sight, and yet the figure remains calm, unshaken. And it also says that down here, it says, the Haindl Chariot speaks to us of a nighttime triumph, the human will confronting its deepest fears. And so, as well as down here, it also says the Haindl Chariot may refer to some deep fear driving the person. The person may not even recognize the fear, but if the picture strikes a response, then the person may wish to explore whether such a fear exists, etc., etc. So as I see this person on the water with this beast here on this boat, like immediately I think about the power that exists within. Like, it, for some reason, this makes me think of the Ark, like Noah's Ark, and although it's not, it doesn't make me think of that story. It specifically just makes me think of like the largeness of what we can be up against and how small this person is in comparison to the beast, in comparison to whatever this like stone situation is, this like shining thing. And actually I should pick up the card. And like I said, this beast, this whatever this is, the boat, and the ocean itself, as a water card. I also like to see this person as sort of like on fire, as you can see, but like they're very open to the journey and they're very small in comparison to everything around them, but they're very calm and relaxed. So for me, how I would read this is, like I said, the deck is just being itself. It's being who it's meant to be. And at this time, its energy is about will and fear and the power that one seems to have in the face of those things. Like for me personally, I think I actually think it's a lot about my own willpower. And like my, as Crowley would say, like my true will, more so along like my purpose and the fears that drive me and the powerlessness that I feel. I think I recently talked about powerlessness in my top 10 decks, but I also, in a recent reading, read about... had some cards come up about willpower, and yeah, so that seems to be really interesting at this time. So it looks like it's definitely talking to me about the work that I'm doing and the fears and the will that I'm currently handling it with. And I want to ask, I think next I want to ask about, in what ways have I been, let me just zoom out a little bit, in what ways have I not been approaching the deck like in the best way? Like, how have I been approaching the deck in a way that's not super helpful? Okay, that's really interesting. That is really, really, really interesting. Okay. My first impression here would be that I'm expecting to get, always good vibes. I'm expecting that this deck is going to sort of be, it's going to stay in the realm that I tend to look at it as. And it's not going to step outside of that. And I think maybe I'm just more narrow-minded about what I've been expecting from the deck, maybe just coming from like a really rote way of working with it. So like in this case, I'm expecting it to be sort of like always love and not love and light, but like light and just like abundance, and telling me how I can like manifest. I mean, not necessarily that that's what I've been doing, but just it's just showing, I feel like, a sort of unconscious bias of maybe not even just how I'm working with this deck, but working with decks at this time, and just expecting for it to come across in a like always positive, always like happy, because it's not just about like material full richness, but just like emotional good vibes, richness. I don't know how else to explain that. I'm sure you get what I mean, but I feel like I get what it's saying there. It's just like, yeah, you thinking that it's just gonna be like good news every time. I guess the next question could be like, what can I do to change that? Like, what in my perspective can I I'm not sure exactly how to phrase this next question. I guess it's kind of like a question that I would ask in like a deck interview of just like, how can I best collaborate with you? And I'm not sure whether to ask like what I can change specifically, like to really look at that change, or if I can just look at what my general approach can be and sort of fill in the gap of the blank. I think what I want to ask next is how can I best collaborate with you moving forward? Like what energy can I bring to the deck and to the readings that I do with this deck in order to work with the energy that it's showing up with, and not with these biases that I have towards it and towards readings in general at this time. Like what energy can I show up with moving forward? Oh my goodness, that's too funny. Okay. So okay, so the tower, yay. Oh, this deck is so funny. Okay, well, I just say tarot reading is really funny. I love when I just like when the deck is just talking smack to me. Not smack, but just like, hello. I mean, it's kind of clear. Here it is. Here's the answer. You asked for it. Okay, so all right. So I feel like what I'm kind of seeing is, I mean, the numerology, right? So we have, of course, the tower is 16. So if we add 1 plus 6, we get 7. So we see a direct connection here, in that also this is a fire card, we have a water card, and I feel like clearly it's just like expect for shit to happen, for destruction to happen. Destruction is a part of creation, and and one thing is, I do see this deck as sort of the dangers of humanity, the dangers of our our issues, and how we can sort of the two sides of the coin of how we can create like so much beauty, and how like utterly wonderful it is to be alive and to be human, and then at the same time how our issues gone unchecked can create like catastrophe and like utter destruction. And so that's how I generally see the deck. And so just a reminder that like if that's how you see the deck, you should expect destruction, not because not in the sense of like humans, but in when it comes to creation. I always, like, as a creative, I'm always trying to remind myself that for something new to be created, something does have to be destroyed on some level. And so if I'm thinking about in my life and how I'm approaching the tarot and the things that I go to the tarot for, I need to expect that my issues and my problems and the things that I'm sort of not doing well do need to crumble in order for me to get better, to improve, to be my best self, and bring that out into the world. So there's that. And also just that I feel like it's also a warning of if you don't allow these things to happen, you just end up with more pain when things change. because you sort of repress in fear, because you try to stop bad things from happening. Not bad things, but you get the point. Like I try to stop like negative things from happening, from consequences from happening, but those things need to be accepted. When something doesn't have a good foundation, it needs to be uprooted. And instead of avoiding, it reminds me of something that my QPP talks about a lot from a book that they read called The Way of Integrity. And it talks about how suffering is optional, pain is not. And so if I choose to avoid pain, how much I avoid pain is a direct reflection of how much I end up suffering, because pain is a given. And so, yeah, kind of lost my train of thought there, but pain is a given. And so I don't actually need to suffer when these things happen. Approach that I can have coming to the deck is that it's here to teach me. And those really harsh truths and those things that come across as really negative can be the thing that break down my illusions and help me to see. And so ultimately, because these cards are connected, I feel like it's a reminder that the deck is still all about success in a sense. It's here to actually help me succeed and help the beauty to come through, help the creation to come through, destruction for the sake of creation and not just destruction for the sake of just like shit going bad, right? And really to just face those human desires and issues that cause me to, here we have like this skyscraper, and like, I know specifically in this deck, it's about like humans always wanting more, And so if I don't deal with those, my shadow, essentially, issues in my shadow, then what was the point I was saying? Then I don't get to move forward. I forget what the point that I was trying to make. When I watch it back, I'll probably get it. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. And so I forget what, so I feel like I wanted to ask too, like, I'm going to move these up right here, and I'm just going to ask my next question, which I think is like, what have you been trying to get me to see in my own personal life? Okay. So we have a, what's the word I'm looking for? A court card. And it's funny because I remember that this card came up, I would say a few months ago. And I remember it really stuck out to me. And I've been sort of on and off been trying to sit with the role of the Father of Wands, King of Wands, and also specifically Brahma in my life. And so yeah, I find that really interesting for it to say like, yeah, this is what I've been trying to get you to see, especially when we're looking at fire here and fire here. I think that's really interesting. Okay, so just grabbing the guidebook here. It says that the Father of Wands is Brahma, the creator, and the Trimurti. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that. I apologize. Of creator, preserver, destroyer. So he is the creator in this of creator, preserver, destroyer. And so I think that really interesting, considering I was just discussing creation and destruction here. So creator, preserver, destroyer, and this is the creator, and we're looking at fire. And so really interesting to look at the actually, let me bring it up closer so you guys can see also this individual as the creator. It feels like a reminder that of the power of fire and the power of the cycle of creation and destruction, and definitely an affirmation of what we just read here, but also I think of myself and the wisdom that is outside of myself. So not only do I see this King of Wands as me being able to create in the fire, to sort of use that fire as fuel to create what is for me to create. And so when I was talking about will before, and true will and things like that, really a reminder that even though I'm a water sign, I've always felt so close to the element of fire, and always felt like this alchemical dance of it for me, and that was something that I felt inside of me, specifically that it was really important for me to sort of embody that dance between water and fire. And I think a lot of times I tend to shy away from fire because water feels more comfortable for me, or I should say the emotions feel more comfortable for me. And it also reminds me of my favorite show, Avatar, and how one of the characters talks about how wild fire is, and that he specifically says, I don't know if you know the show, but anyways, there's the four elements. There's water, air, fire, and earth. And he says, without the bender, because they're all called like water benders, earth benders, fire benders, etc. So he says, without the bender, a rock will not throw itself. But fire is, I don't remember exactly how he says it, but pretty much fire has a mind of its own. It spreads, it grows. And so it's really important to be able to be responsible with that fire. And it reminds me also how when the main character, this is a little bit of a spoiler, so if you don't want a spoiler, just jump a couple seconds ahead. I don't know if you plan on watching. Actually, there's a new show coming out. They're doing a live action version, so that'd be really cool. If you haven't watched it, then you could definitely watch that. But anyways, the point is, when the main character, when Aang is learning fire, it's really important not to be afraid of it. He's taught about the true meaning of fire and how it's life, and it's not just destruction and pain.
Before learning firebending, you must learn water and earth. Water is cool and soothing. Earth is steady and stable. But fire is alive. It breathes, it grows. Without the bender, a rock will not throw itself. But fire will spread and destroy everything in its path if one does not have the will to control it.
All this time, I thought firebending was destruction. Since I heard Katara, I've been too afraid and hesitant. But now I know what it really is. It's energy and life.
Oh, wow, what a beautiful connection. I love this. Okay, all right. Let's see. What else do I want to ask with the deck? Actually, I have to change my battery because my battery is dying, as usual. Okay, so next, what I think I want to ask is, I know I talked about what perspective or energy that I should show up with. And now that I feel like oh, no. Oh, baby. No. You can't be up here. Oh, geez. Get down, baby. Uh-oh. Okay. So, yeah, I feel like now that I have a sense of the energy that I should energy for, that I can show up with and what it's been trying to help me understand, I feel like I want to dig a little bit deeper into that and ask like what kind of work is expected of me, or like what kind of work can I be doing to heed this message, to follow through like the Chariot is sort of asking me to. Oh my, how cool is that? That's so cool. Okay, so it feels like it's trying to get me to this place, but maybe I could start with the Princess of Wands. And I'm since working with the Thoth, I'm a bit partial to the princesses now. But I would also say that it's actually really amazing too, because when I first started working with tarot, my significator was the Page of Cups, or in this case, the Princess of Cups, or the Daughter of Cups in the North in this deck. So starting with, at the princess level makes a lot of sense. And specifically with Radha, I'm going to read really quick in the guidebook so that I can get a better understanding. And really, this is also a call, which is really interesting to look into these deities specifically, because I have, in the last couple of months, also been drawn to work with Kali because of her depiction in this deck is actually really incredible, and it's so interesting that my favorite depictions of deities that I'm drawn to tend to be in this deck. Obviously not all of them, but the ones that are here, I'm just like, that is probably one of the best images that I've personally seen that I feel most connected to. Before I mention what's in the guidebook, I also wanted to say, like I said before, my partiality to the princesses. Just wanted to like talk a little bit about how I feel about the Princess of Wands. And what I remember specifically is about how she vanquishes her fear, the tiger, and that triumph over fear. So I found that really interesting considering everything that we've been reading about. But in this card, a lot of it talks about the relationship between Radha and Krishna, and specifically their relationship and the way that they trade roles and they sort of mix into each other. Specifically here, we have her. So I think about how it is specifically for me talking about the feminine. And it also talks about how she has a flute, how they both have flutes. But it says for her, I'll just show you what it says in the book as well. It says that her flute bends the colors of the rainbow, bringing the sensual joy of sight to that sound. By playing, she pours her soul into the flute. The music gives soul to the material world. Of course, I can look at that specifically as music, but also just how I use my creative skills and talents to, what does it say here? To give soul to the material world, and how I put my soul into the work that I do, and which aligns perfectly with what it talks about in sort of the divination section about how she is happy. This is a card of a happy person, someone gentle rather than passive. She is happy, for she lives her life in beauty. The Daughter of Wands is sensual. She delights in sex. And so when it talks about reversed, it says that this is someone who's repressing those qualities. And so that she doesn't allow herself to act out her sensuality, playfulness, or self-confidence. So when it comes to acting, putting my soul into my work, fully moving forward with that self-assurance, self-confidence, and happiness, and not repressing those things. So clearly is what we talked about before about repression, very much so on the tower. So, but really just not necessarily how I can work with the deck, but really honing in on the energy that I need to have in the work that I'm doing. So the work that I need to do, with this deck and with what it's calling me toward, generally speaking, is to work on bringing out those qualities of joy and playfulness and sensuality, and really putting my soul into what I'm creating and my creative qualities. And honestly, for the sake of having a sixth card here, I'm trying to figure out a final question that I can ask. I really want to close this reading, I think, with the number 6. I think is also a beautiful number to close off with. And so I'm just really thinking about, how do I want to close this reading? Thinking about this and what this may have. I'm feeling gratitude for the clarity, and for the deck, and for how much it has enriched my life at this point, and how it feels like such a strong truth teller, which is why I feel also so aligned with it. I was gonna say maybe it could be about, I could ask, It's funny, I was thinking about it earlier, that I wanted to ask sort of like, what can I find in the haindl that I can't find in other decks? I think specifically because recently in one of my like video diaries that I found of myself from sometime last year, was I looked at I was talking about the Bibliotech Tarot. This is a deck I got a while back from Kickstarter, and I really, really love this deck. I can just quickly show it to you as I talk about why I want to ask that question, because I remember, well, not I remember, I watched in the video that I said that this deck feels like the opposite of the haindl to me. That it's about, like, it really is about, for me, what is humans good, is being a human good or bad, like, with, and it's really, 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 I feel like, about like despair and destruction. At least, you know, like I said, that's my impression of the deck. It's meant to be a sort of a horror deck, and it's very intense, and there's, you know, there's no color. It is a strictly black and white deck, and the haindl is a lot more soft and expressive. And I know that specifically in these cards, it even talks about, you know, Rachel talks about how these cards were painted in very like soft and subtle tones. So this deck feels very much like the opposite. And, you know, human consciousness is represented so beautifully in the haindl to me, whereas here I feel like these cards with these like specifically the Pentacles Sue, for me feels like these chips, and how they represent consciousness on a very and the material world on a very like technological level, something very sort of divorced from humans, but also as a creation of humans. I don't know if that makes sense. So yeah, well, here, there's just like a bunch of them. But yeah, I find that this deck, which I completely forgot, feels like you know, an opposite of the haindl, which is really interesting. I completely, yeah, I forgot about that. And so it just made me want to like ask myself, you know, what can I get from the haindl that I can't receive from other decks, especially since, you know, this is a deck that I dearly love. And so as I was getting all these readings and feeling like this like hesitance to work with the deck, because I wasn't really sure how to integrate these messages that I was getting, and I was sort of then becoming more closed off to the messages as they were coming, because I was so maybe exasperated from the quote negativity of it, or the like difficulty of the readings and the cards that were coming up. Now I'm feeling much better about it. And sorry, my phone is ringing. One second. What was I saying? Yeah, I don't know. It just made me think about how special the haindl is. Like I said, this deck that I love dearly, and these readings were sort of driving me away from the deck, and causing a little bit of like tension between us. And so now that I'm really, you know, hearing what I said about the bibliothèque, and really wanting to connect, and after hearing all of these messages, I feel just like a reconnection and a reattunement with this deck. And I feel like that was really necessary. And, you know, it makes me want to go do that with other decks, and really a reminder of what I get specifically from these decks. It's like the deck had become such a favorite that it was just like a favorite because it was a favorite. And I think I lost a little bit of touch of why it's my favorite and what it brings to the table, like I said, which is really heartbreaking when I think about it, because I love it so much. But, you know, sometimes you can like take something for granted, and yeah, I don't want to do that. But yeah, so I think just a reminder, generally speaking, about what can I get from the haindl that is special to the haindl and doesn't exist in other places. So I feel like that's a big question, but I think maybe we'll close there. How beautiful. I love the rainbow. It is so funny, actually. I received the rainbow in the monthly practice, which was, when did I do that? It was the night before last, 2 nights ago, on the new moon, actually, as well. I received a rainbow card, and it was a reminder that, like, the significance of the rainbow for me, that it seems to really pop up in really interesting times in my life. And I haven't always heeded, I felt like, the messages that were coming at the time that those rainbows were showing up. I feel like there were very like significant moments in my life where like I have had very, very, very strong rainbow experiences. And it's really strange. Like, I'm really intrigued by it. It's definitely something that I want to sort of lean into more. And this is just another reminder of that, which also came literally 2 nights ago, which is just that, like, when I say like I have strong rainbow experiences, I mean like I'm literally seeing rainbows completely arch over a landscape, or always a double. I mean, there's always a double rainbow when there's a rainbow, right? or maybe there isn't. I don't know if people are always seeing it, but I'm always seeing double rainbows. I'm seeing like the full arch from beginning to end. And literally I'll be real. There was one at my wedding, and that's a really complex thing to experience, for me specifically because of because of reasons. And so yeah, I'm just really, that's the first thing that comes to mind when I look at that. I'm gonna be real with y'all. The guidebook entry for the haindl, the hanged man, is really long, and I don't want to read the entire thing, but I just looked over a few, the first couple pages. And before I get into what the guidebook says, I want to talk about what I'm also seeing in the card, or when I think about the hanged man in general. Well, first of all, I'm reminded that when I was reading about and thinking about the rainbow the other day, it was also brought to my attention the chakras, and looking at them here, they are they are in their correct order, but in the rainbow they're this way only when you're upside down, right? And so it's really an image of surrender, which is also in the guidebook, but I'm just saying that there's a connection there between what I was reflecting on the other day and what's showing up in the card. But this as another support to that being, the surrender that, oh, dearie, baby, you can't be up here. Okay. You want to sit right there? You can sit right there. I'm going to zoom out. Okay. Anyway, yeah, so that shadow is my cat. He's going to be sitting right there. But anyway, so the wisdom and connection and dear baby. Hi, baby. Hi. Okay. How do I move forward? Oh, baby. My dear. My sweet dear. Okay. 1 second, y'all. Okay, I think I'm going to try to finish the reading with this sweet baby cat here. He's not a baby, but my sweet child. Yeah. So I wanted to make it quick anyways when it comes to the hanged man as it is. And so pretty much, okay, dear. All right. Okay, we're back. We may have only a few moments before we're interrupted again. But I wanted to make it quick anyways on this hanged man situation. Pretty much, I think of the Hebrew letter, which I don't often use Hebrew letters in my readings. I'm aware of some of them. I'm not aware of all of them. And yeah, so that's just a note on that. But I know that mem is one that I know very well, and I always think of it. It is really crucial to how I read the hanged man, specifically around when it comes to water. And the guidebook also talks about this dissolution. And that's how I think about surrender, as dissolution in water. And I think there's so much in the guidebook. I know that specifically, we're looking at Odin here. There is a depiction of Odin in the core card. So it is Odin, but it's not really focusing too much on the character of Odin. It talks about, actually, I'm going to bring up a quote from the guidebook really quick. So in the guidebook, it talks about, specifically with reference to the Chariot, which I thought was interesting. In the Chariot, we saw the power of that personality, the focused will, the mastery of fear, the ability to confront mortality. There we saw the self riding on the sea of the unconscious, protected by the boat of intellect and will. In the hanged man, however, the self surrenders to the unconscious. In the place of separation, we find unity. In the place of primal fear, we find peace. If water forms such an important theme, why do we find mountains instead of the sea? Particularly in the image. The answer is that in the Haindl Tarot, surrender becomes possible when we join with the earth. We can give up the illusion of controlling the world because we know that we belong to all life. And I find it really interesting that we're looking at a card of water once again, when, as I said, when I talked about fire and water earlier, and with water with the Chariot versus fire here, we have 2 fire cards, and how I generally look at the haindl as an ecological and mythological deck, very much earth focused, very much earth centered, and it feels like a love letter to our planet and to our existence, and a sort of like a history book, a blueprint, and all of those things wrapped up. But you know, we're looking at the world tree here. I don't think I've actually brought the card close up for you guys, but we're seeing how he becomes the tree, how this is a symbol, the universal symbol of peace here that we're seeing. So talking about that peace, we're also looking at, it looks like it says the body of the goddess with this is your pregnant belly, the breasts here, and an indication of pubic hair. We have these birds or ravens here, I believe, of Odin. And overall, I'm just receiving the message of the multifaceted nature of this deck, how it really can provide me with the full spectrum of experience. Like when I'm looking at the rainbow here, and how even though there's no water, the guidebook talks about how a rainbow is a indication of water, because of, you know, the refraction of light in the water in the atmosphere, which, correct me if I'm wrong, which is why we have rainbows. And so it's a reminder that this deck really can dig into the full spectrum of experience and provide a level of peace and dissolution, and also removing the illusions of power and control, and allowing me really just to surrender to the flow of life, and how that allows me to become enlightened. Oh yes, we were talking about, interesting how we come back to the element of water and the element of earth, as I said, because I do see this deck as a very earthy deck. But it's a reminder that the earth encompasses all of who we are. I remember I was meditating and talking to a friend about an insight that I felt like I gained about just how the earth is us and we are the earth, just as it feels like our organs. It's really removing this idea of separation, of how, like, of parts, like my arm is a part of me and my spleen is a part of me, but really, like, it is me because it's my spleen. And really, like, how language sort of separates us from the full existence that we're experiencing. I'm not sure if this is making sense, and that's exactly how I see the earth itself, how the earth is us and we are the earth, because we would not be able to breathe with the full delicate balance of all the things that exist. And that's why conservation and, you know, ecological awareness is super important, so that we can maintain the beautiful elements that we get to have, that allow us life and that are us. We are not separated from any part of, or any aspect of this planet. And what did I watch recently where someone said something about going to space, and they're like, oh, so you want to go to space? And they're like, we're in space right now. and that was like a mind-blowing moment, because that's something that I always was like, you know, if there's one thing that's like really unrealistic but also just like breaks my heart, is that I'll never be able to go to the moon. Like, I'll never be able to leave this planet. And that statement, that revelation, that insight really brought me peace. I'm in space right now. I'm on this like absolutely wonderful planet, on this rock floating in nothingness, and there's billions and billions and billions more out there, but I am a part of that, and I am that. So yeah, if that tells you what this deck has to offer, I think that fully explains it in and of itself. The fact that I can go on that meandering path of meditative musing. So So yeah, I think that just about wraps up this reading. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this was as fun for you as it was for me. This is really what I love about tarot, and that's why I feel so connected to this deck, is because it makes me think and it makes me really reconnect with, you know, existing and not just, you know, the day to day. And that's what I really love about tarot, is that it really allows me to come back into the splendor of being. And so I just want to leave you with that and appreciate you so much. And if you have liked this video, please give it a like, of course. And I might share a little bit more on the Hanged Man on my community tab, so look out for that. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!